Hey, what's up, everybody? John Scott here for John Scott Podcast and Turnbuckle TV, and I'm really pleased to have on a special guest on this one from the Indie Wrestler, and we're going to talk about everything about what's coming up, what it's all about, the whole background, how it's come about, and stuff around the whole thing itself. But coming on, pleased to say the founder of Indie Wrestler himself is Rehan. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, Scott. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. As we said off air, it's quite warm today, but we're not going to complain because we just don't get enough of it, I guess.
Absolutely. Good weather, good days, happy days.
So obviously, Indie Wrestler. It's a lot of people, a lot of my listeners certainly have been checking out a lot of the adverts that you guys have been putting out, and obviously some of the announcements with some of the talent that are going to be affiliated with the game. But just give us a brief description how this came about and the idea behind it yourself.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, Indie Wrestler is a mobile game. So it's going to be for iOS and Android. And the idea pretty much came from, I own a marketing company.
Right.
And, we do all sorts of things, build websites, develop apps, do social media videos and all that kind of stuff. And about 6-7 months ago, somebody reached out and said, look, we want to create a game, and do you have anything in your portfolio to showcase? And we didn't. We had other apps. And I thought, well, you know what, we probably should add a game to our portfolio. And of course, in kind of business world, if you don't have something to showcase, people are not likely to kind of commission you for it. So I got the team together and said, look, we need to make a game. And when we were brainstorming, I said, look, I'm a big wrestling fan. I used to play a lot of wrestling games when I was younger. Right. Why don't we look at creating some type of a wrestling game? And, we started brainstorming, and the guys were coming up with ideas that are very similar to WWE 2K. And, I stopped playing WWE kind of games a long time ago, and also FIFA as well. Primarily because I always felt once you'd mastered the controls, you kind of didn't need to play it. I haven't played FIFA since probably 99. I used to play like every single year it used to come out. I'm quite old now, but when I was young, I used to get every single year. And then at 99, I just stopped. But still, I'm still pretty good at FIFA, right? Because the controls are the same, the mechanism of the game is the same, so I can still have a pretty decent game. So I thought, I don't want to create a game like that once you've mastered it, that's it. And I thought, well, I'm really into kind of like the football manager type of games. So I said, why don't we try to create a football manager type style game? And so originally we started brainstorming and thought, shall we have a game where you're a promoter and you have to hire talent and all that kind of stuff, and you try to put on a show. And I thought, we're going to have a lot of trouble. I originally thought we were going to have a lot of trouble getting promotions on board, getting real wrestlers on board. And I thought, who wants to play a game with, fake promotions and fake wrestlers, and, you're trying to build, you don't have any kind of connection to it. So I thought, what if we flipped it the other way and said, you're a wrestler, and you have to go into the world of wrestling, and you have to start up on the independent circuit, and you have to build your reputation just like a normal wrestler, go to shows, train, upgrade your gear, work out, all that kind of stuff. And you try to go through promotions and try to get belts and all that kind of stuff, and try to emulate a little bit of the football manager vibe where you don't actually play the matches. You have to just create actions, you have to time yourself, and it's very tactical from that point of view. So that's kind of where the idea came. It manifested itself through more conversations, and we just kind of brought it to light to what it is today.
Now, I've got to ask, you mentioned in the early part of that you come up with the idea of the wrestling theme yourself. How difficult was that as a selling job to the rest of your team? Is it quite easy, or did it take a little bit of convincing for maybe some of the... I mean, I'm not sure how... if all your members had any like wrestling fandom in them already, but did you have to sell that at all, or did they kind of get where you were coming from?
I didn't have to sell it because I'm the boss, right? So
you do as I say.
We're making the game. You like it or not, we're making the game, right? So I'm none of them are wrestling fans, but we've been in the marketing game for a long time, and we know how to, go from different verticals, different kind of industries. And because I had a background in wrestling as a wrestling fan, I'm the one who's kind of guided the conversations, the discussions, and they're specialists in marketing, building apps, and graphic design and stuff like that. So they're focusing on that stuff. We do have one guy in the team, our concept artist. He is a wrestling fan.
Right.
So he's the one who's been designing the belts. He's the one who's been designing the gear for the wrestlers. He's a wrestling fan. That was important because you can't really design. Imagine someone trying to design Macho Man's gear but has no idea who Macho Man is, right?
Yeah. So, all of a sudden he's coming out in a suit or something.
Yeah, absolutely. So he is. Everyone else is just just generally marketing guys.
Cool. It's fascinating that you mentioned about your own experience playing games like FIFA and the WWE games, which, by the way, I haven't probably owned a WWE game in, I don't know, since probably THQ left them, and they went over to the 2K stuff. But yeah, it's been one of those things. I think like FIFA's, WWE, like those kind of games that get released every year. Unfortunately, like it's more or less a sort of updated download in a lot of ways, but you're paying full value for it every year. And that's kind of how I saw it in the end. And yeah, you're right. There's not much in terms of like, replaying and the ability to sort of keep going at it once you've mastered it. It's kind of it's a bit of a shame, but like the wrestling game genre for a long time, at least on the main consoles, hasn't really been where it should be in terms of the marketing. And like you say, the same with FIFA. Like I've kind of stopped playing that, like you as well. I remember those games. I'm surprised you stopped at 99. I think mine was around, I want to say 2009, probably something like that. But yeah, I'd kind of had enough of it by then. But I love the idea, the fact that you mentioned Football Manager, because that is something, as I've got older, I've become much more intrigued with. Like there's much more replayability with it. There's more sort of the stats side of it, the statistics. Like there's just lots of different variations to bring into something like that. And again, like you say, a lot of it is your sort of imagination runs wild with those games because that's how they operate. But I like the idea that you would think of a wrestling game with sort of Football Manager attitude into it. How difficult has it been? A difficult process though to sort of get that as a sort of transparent, I guess, with a wrestling game? Has that been hard, or has it been an easy process thus far?
No, it's been quite difficult, primarily because once you say wrestling game, people don't have the connotation of a Football Manager style game, right?
Yeah.
Primarily, especially since we've been advertising that we've got real promotions in there, real wrestlers in there. A lot of people are just waiting to see an actual, an indie wrestler, a character of them in the game, and you going in the ring and fighting them and so on and so forth. But it's been really difficult to educate people that actually this is a different style of game, this is a different mechanism of a game. And then these kind of games, the complexity is in the simplicity, if that makes sense, right?
Yep.
Because your career progression, we wanted to map how you would be as an indie wrestler, right? So sometimes indie wrestlers get more over because they're having better matches. Promoters like them more, so they're getting pushed up higher. And on other times they're having bad matches. They're getting into arguments with promoters. They're getting into online beef with other wrestlers and publications, stuff like that. And so, your career digresses, right? And we wanted to bring that into the game. We didn't want it to be the case of you become the champion for example, NGW, and you're champion forever. That's just not how the real life kind of landscape works. So that sounds very simple, but actually to put that mechanism in place where it's addictive enough and compelling enough and frustrating enough, where you're trying to realize, well, why am I not being, why they're not picking me as a champion? Why I've just won it? Why am I losing it? We're trying to replicate. It's almost, again, going back to Football Manager. You play Football Manager and you'll be, I don't know, Man United, and you're playing against someone like Torquay United in the FA Cup third round. And for some reason, you've got a better squad, better team, better players, and you'll lose the game, and you'll be sat there thinking, how the hell have I just lost this game? Like, despite the fact of, sometimes you have to create stuff that is illogical to bring that frustration out, to bring that I'm going to get better next time back in. So that's been quite difficult to do, and we're still working on it. But hopefully, once we put all the pieces together, and we know that the first version of the game is not going to be the best. We know that we're going to have to keep improving, adding bits and pieces onto it. But hopefully, just the mere fact that we're thinking of these things means that we hope that will translate into the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It sounds really good. Sounds quite very different and unique, to be fair, to a lot of the stuff I've come into contact with, and the sort of thing I'd probably quite interested. I think the fascinating thing with an independent wrestler is that I think, like you say, to get that true nature of how it is for an indie wrestler, you've got to kind of have that sort of 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of mentality, because that can often happen as a professional wrestler, I'm sure, where you think you've got it and then all of a sudden you haven't. So that's pretty cool. And like you say, a lot of games, especially wrestling games, it is about climbing that ladder, and there never seems to be like you can never go back or down after you've achieved it, which is kind of a bit of a shame and not kind of true to reality. So I'm kind of glad that you guys have looked at that. Talk us as well about some of the affiliations. I know you've definitely opened up there. Was that an easy acquirement? Has that been straightforward thus far? And are the guys all on board with it? The people that you have on your books already?
Yeah. So originally the idea was, that we were going to have all computer generated stuff. So all the promotions were going to just be, we did have a Excel document that just had variations of like 3-letter acronyms. So we'd have, every wrestling promoter is like, obviously you got WWE, WCW, ECW, they're all like CZW, ROH, AEW, all these kind of promotions, NJPW, all these, they're just acronyms of like letters just jumbled up. So we just had a folder full of just different acronyms, UKXF and ABCY and stuff like that. And then, because we just thought, it's going to be such a long struggle to try to get wrestlers and promoters on board and sell them the concept and have their game in there, and they're all probably going to ask for licensing agreements and stuff. And what happened originally was we had to make a video because we were going to do a Kickstarter at the beginning. So we wanted to create a promotional video, and we reached out to Rampage Brown, just thinking, why don't we just see if Rampage Brown can be part of our promotional video? Yep. He's quite well known on the indie scene, and we'll just make something like that. And his people came back and said, do you need any other wrestlers? And they said, oh, well, we've got Adam Maxted as well. And so we did that with Adam and Rampage. And again, we shot the video, not thinking that they'd want to be part of anything further forward. And we just, while we were shooting the video, we said, look, guys, would you mind being in the game? And they were like, yep, we have no issues. And then the organization that they were part of, who got us in touch with them, who booked us for them, was NGW. So we said, look, would you guys mind being part of the game? And they were like, fine. And so we thought, well, that was really easy. We just literally asked them, would you be part of it? And they were like, yeah. So then we just started reaching out to 2-3 more wrestlers. So we're like, we've got Rampage and Adam in the game. Would you mind being in there? And then slowly but surely, more were like, yep, we'll be part of it. And more will be, and more will be, and more will be. And then we were like, well, if these wrestlers are part of it, shall we start reaching out to promotions? And so we started reaching out to more promotions. Would you be part of it? Will you be part of it? And then as more wrestlers saw that, their fellow colleagues and friends were in the game, and as more promotions saw that other promotions were in the game, it started to get to the case where, like, now we're having wrestlers and promotions approach us. Like, we're overwhelmed with the amount. So the game structure is, we were going to have 10 promotions in the UK, 4 in Germany, so on and so forth. And from Germany, we'd had like 10 different promotions reaching out saying, can you put us in there? Can you put us in there? And so it's been really, really easy. I mean, the reason why we originally thought it was going to be very hard was when we first started the game, we did reach out to some high-profile wrestlers who were on the cusp of joining WWE. They were still on the UK kind of scene. Sure. And nobody responded aside from Mark Haskins. Right. He was the only one. We reached out to about 6 wrestlers and said, look, would you mind? We just wanted to interview him and just said, look, tell us how an independent wrestler's life is. And the only one who responded was Mark Haskins. So we thought, well, if only Mark has responded from like 6 different guys, there's no way that, the rest are going to want to be, borrow their name to the game. But surprisingly, they all have, and we're really pleased with that.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think it's like you say, you can have like one of the best, games out there, but like there's something about it. Especially, I remember it like football games, especially. That's soccer for anybody that's listening in the US. But you'd get those games sometimes, and they didn't have the licenses or the badges and things like that. And I don't know, there was always something that took me out of it. I remember the very early days of international superstar soccer. I don't know if you remember those ones